Hello everyone, Ian here. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Over the weekend, I came across this article from Bounding in Comics. Unreal Engine coding standards requires video game studios to use inclusive language in programming and documentation. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, I've worked in tech for well over 20 years, and I've been seeing this type of inclusive language creeping in over the last 4, specifically after what happened with the George Floyd riots. Now, at the time, my boss was a black woman, and when she was delivering the news about how we need to use more inclusive language, you could tell that she wasn't having any of it. Because at the end of the day, this really doesn't do anything. It's nothing more than just a virtue signal. Now, I can guarantee you that the majority of people who actually do something for a living and not just sitting around drinking lattes and talking about how awesome their job is and how they go in and basically do absolutely nothing except maybe shoot off an email, don't care. Now, of course, there absolutely are woke weirdos in tech. I mean, come on, all you have to do is take a look at Google. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that probably the majority of people that work in tech are on the spectrum to some degree, and they simply just don't care. Now, coming over to the Unreal Engine website, you can see that they have a whole section on inclusive word choice. Now, there is a philosophy in development, which is that your code is a form of documentation. And when you go and name a class or function or a variable, it really should be descriptive and people should have a good idea of what you are doing. And the reason why you want to do this is because you're not going to be the only person maintaining this code, and the next person that comes along needs to understand what you've written. And so that totally makes sense. Now, one thing I want to point out is that the terms that are used within tech have nothing to do with race, religion, or ethnicity. These are actual industry terms that have been used for a very long time, like whitelist and blacklist. And this has nothing to do with race or racism. But again, like I said, these terms became taboo after the whole George Floyd incident. And the reason why is because this really is low-level corporate virtue signaling. Look, we're doing something without actually doing anything. We're changing language. Do not use words that refer to historical trauma or lived experiences of discrimination. Examples include slave, master, and nuke. Now, the terms slave and master have been used in technology for a very long time. And suddenly, in 2020, we're not allowed to use it anymore. Now, I'm not opposed to changing language in tech if it actually makes sense, and you're not doing this as a cheap virtue signal. In certain distributed systems, controller and worker does actually make more sense than master and slave. But honestly, it's only a matter of time before those terms also become problematic and also need to be changed. After all, we can't offend the communist because the controller is oppressing the worker, or some nonsense like that. Now, one term I've been chastised for using is execute. And as you can see, we have 2 definitions. And the first one is to carry out or put into effect a plan, order, or course of action. And this term is widely used within tech. Typically, you're executing code or executing test or executing something. We're not carrying out a death sentence. And the use of these 2 terms are vastly different. When someone is referring to executing code, we're not referring to shooting a person. This is dumb. This is idiocy at its highest form. And to me, this continues to play into the infantilization of adults, as if somebody with a functioning brain can't discern the difference between running code or killing a human. Gender inclusiveness. Now, this is another one that gets me. It used to be referred to as sex. I don't remember when they cut over to using gender over sex, but hey, whatever. I refer to hypothetical people as they and them and their, even in the singular. I don't necessarily have a huge issue with this, but there's times where you definitely do want to define out somebody's sex because there is a difference between men and women and they want different things. So when it comes to developing customer profiles or avatars, yes, sex and gender does need to be taken into consideration. This one I find funny, refer to anything that is not a person as it and its. For example, a module, plugin, function, client, server, or any other software or hardware component. Now, I would think that this would only apply to people who speak a romance language that is very much a gender language. Personally, I've never heard anyone refer to a system as a male or female. It's typically just referred to as it, or the name of the system, or whatever. Do not assign gender to anything that doesn't have one. Oh man, this is asinine. If somebody does, who fucking cares? That's all I gotta say. Do not use collective nouns like guys. That assumes gender. Guys does not assume gender. It's just a catch-all term. Now, this has been a battle that's been going on since the 90s when it comes to referring to like congressman or congresswoman. They have to be referred to as congressperson. This idea of removing sex and gender is ridiculous, especially when it comes to titles. But hey, let's be honest. The only reason why people have a problem with guys is because it is in the masculine. If gals, for whatever reason, became popular, these same people would not care. And this plays into the next bullet point, which is avoid colloquial phrases that contain arbitrary genders like poor man's ex. Now, as somebody who has written code for a living for many years, not using slang makes sense, right? Because you do want to keep things professional. And like I said, when it comes to defining classes, functions, and variables, we want to make sure that what we're doing actually makes sense and is descriptive. Like I said, code is its own form of documentation. And you really should be professional when it comes to writing these things because you never know who's going to come next. And if you have profanity in your comments, it could cause a problem. I have seen this firsthand. I've actually been the victim of it as well because of my own stupidity. That's just life. But you got to make sure that you are being professional. And that's what a lot of this is about. Now, getting back over to overloaded words, this is the one I find stupid. Many terms that we use for technical meanings also have other meanings outside of technology. Yeah, no shit, that's a lot of stuff. Like examples include abort, which basically means stop. I mean, this has been a technical term for a very long time, has nothing to do with abortion. It shouldn't even be associated with that, which I find ridiculous. Execute, which I've already covered, or native. That's a funny one. And again, the term native has nothing to do with people, but in computing, native software or data formats are those that were designed to run on a particular operating system. So something is native to a platform. Again, has nothing to do with Native Americans, has nothing to do with people. It just means it's native to that platform. Now, I also found this article over at Splunk.com. It's a couple years old, and it covers some offensive terms and more inclusive terms. The issue is that on the inclusive terms, they tend to be a lot more of a mouthful. I mean, just look at black hat hacker, criminal, unethical hacker. It's just easier to say black hat. Same thing with white hat hacker. Everyone knows what a white hat hacker is, or a white hat ethical hacker. Housekeeping apparently is a problematic term now. I guess it invokes some sort of image of a woman in the kitchen making a sandwich or something. And of course, that's offensive. White space, because it has the word white in it. This is something that gets used a lot in text, specifically when it comes to writing code. Nobody was offended by these terms till 2020. It just literally came out of nowhere. Like I said, it goes back to what I was talking about with corporate virtue signaling. This is low-hanging fruit that does absolutely nothing, right? It's so they can go and pat themselves on the back and say, hey, look, we stopped racism. So here's another one. This is an old term. It dates back to Web 1.0, webmaster. Now, they want to change that with web product owner, which is a lot longer to say. Look at Scrum Master. This is another one. Now they want to say Agile Program Master or Scrum Leader. Again, they're making it a lot more cumbersome to say. Native feature, built-in feature. Why is native offensive? And of course, grandfather is problematic because it is a gendered term. And then there's mob programming, which honestly I have not heard used. And the alternative is team programming or swarm programming, whatever. Black box, white box. Something that most people in the street know. Of course, they want to change it to closed box, open box, which is, again, dumb. Dummy value, I guess it's offensive to people who have lower intelligence. Like I said, this is all about infantilizing adults. I've never heard someone say, you know what, I would love to get into technology, but I'm really offended by the term blacklist or grandfathered. And if it is stopping you from getting a job in tech, let's be honest, you don't belong there. This is nothing more than going and inventing a problem so you can come up with a solution for it. And at the end of the day, when you go and you control language, you can control people using it. It's not about inclusion. It's not about diversity. It is about being able to control people using language. Anyway, folks, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are on this whole inclusive language thing. And if you work in the tech industry, let me know what your thoughts are as well. Do you even care that they're shifting this language, or do you have a problem with it like I do? Also, if you want to go and help support the channel, you can head over to beachpunk.us and buy some merch. If you do, I truly appreciate it, and you won't be disappointed with what we have. Now, if you went and you enjoyed this video, I have another video popping up right about now. I suggest you go and click on and check that out. Until then, I'll catch you next time, folks.